to Ethiopia, where the Tigray conflict is escalating, affecting the whole region. Forces from Tigray say they have forged a military alliance with another armed group to heap pressure on the central government in Addis Abeba. This move comes just after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed encouraged citizens to join the fight against resurgent Tigrayan forces. Now, all this could aggravate the humanitarian crisis in the country's 9-month-old war. Thousands of people have died and 100,000 more have been displaced or face famine.
Hungry, displaced, living in constant fear of a widening war. The people of Tigray face a looming humanitarian crisis and a harvest that the UN says will almost certainly fail. The international community has tried to get food aid to the region, but workers have struggled to get supplies to the most needy. Recently, the head of the U.S. Agency for International Development voiced her frustration.
This morning, I visited a local staging center for USAID's food aid, not far from the capital. Warehouses were full of wheat and lentils and split peas, and trucks lay idle in the mud because deliveries had been backed up for weeks due to ongoing blockades.
The region's troubles go beyond that, however. The fighting has killed thousands and inflamed long-standing ethnic tensions. Mutilated bodies have been found in rivers downstream from the most troubled areas. It all comes just weeks after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed won re-election after declaring a unilateral ceasefire with Tigray forces. But any hope that calm would prevail has evaporated as fighting spread. Now that Ahmed, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, has committed to Ethiopian nationalism and called for all-out war, he may find it harder to compromise. His supporters leave no doubt where they stand. Today we are here to stand with our army and to show support and love for our national armed forces. The government's campaign against Tigrayan fighters has not only caused a humanitarian crisis, it has also failed militarily. Tigrayan soldiers have expanded their operations outside of Tigray itself, moving into the Amhara region and capturing Lalibela, home to a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The possibility of more destabilization seems likely. Images like these of people displaced by the conflict have become distressingly familiar over the past year, and it seems things will get a lot worse before they get better.
For more on this, I am now joined by Murithi Mutiga. He is Project Director for the Horn of Africa with the International Crisis Group. Hello, sir. Thanks for your time. Now, civilians are already paying the price for the ongoing war in Tigray. So why is Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed now still calling on civilians to join the conflict?
Yes, this is a conflict that's been fought at a horrific price by civilians. We've seen thousands of deaths, tens of thousands displaced. But, there are competing motivations by the various actors. Prime Minister Abiy perceives this as an existential battle. He casts it as an effort to save Ethiopia from the Tigray People's Liberation Front. But then the Tigray People's Liberation Front argues that their region has been under siege. They've suffered immensely. They still are enduring a blockade, and they have to fight on. With the Ethiopian military seemingly weakened, with Abiy facing a party congress next month, he sees himself as needing to project strength, but unfortunately this is coming at a terrible cost for Ethiopia.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the right call at all. How could this play out?
We already have seen this conflict, as I said, exert a very huge toll on the civilian population. What we are saying is that the conflict is both spreading and intensifying. For 8 months, it was primarily geographically contained within the Tigray region. Now we see that the neighboring Afar and Amhara regions have been pulled in. But the most important thing is that when you bring in civilians as combatants, when it becomes more and more ethnicized, it becomes more difficult to stop. And so therefore, it's really essential that all actors double their efforts to stop this conflict because the more protracted it becomes, the harder it will be to contain.
So, do you foresee a long, drawn-out regional conflict even beyond Ethiopian borders?
Ethiopia is the anchor state of the region. If you look at the region of Bloc IGAD, Ethiopia shares a border with each country within that bloc apart from Uganda. Historically, the country has been an exporter of stability. Really, the region is looking at this conflict with a lot of anxiety. Sudan has already been pulled in. Tens of thousands of refugees are there. Eritrea is an active participant in the hostilities. Unfortunately, now we see Djibouti being affected, not just politically, but also economically, because Ethiopia is such an important partner to that country. We see tensions boiling up between the Afar and Somali communities within Djibouti. Kenya is looking out with a lot of anxiety, worried about a potential flood of refugees, but not just that, but also widening instability. So really, the fact that Ethiopia is such an important regional actor, the fact that Ethiopia historically has been the one to stabilize the region, emphasizes the need to move very quickly to settle this through a political settlement. Without question, the longer it lasts, the greater the danger of regional contagion.
So, with all the fighting still going on, is there enough humanitarian aid reaching the people in dire need of it?
By all accounts, including from the United Nations, and its special envoy was on the ground recently, what we are seeing is a trickle of aid, but what we really need is a flood of support. The humanitarian needs are very acute. Tens of thousands need this support, particularly in Tigray, but increasingly now the displaced also in areas of Afar and Amhara. And I think it really is essential, well beyond the political calculations, that the actors allow aid to flow in. So,
it's been going on for months, like we said. What could bring back calm to the region?
This ultimately was always a political dispute, and the actors were very wrong to try and pursue a military settlement to what ultimately is a political contestation. It really is absolutely essential, first for Addis, but also for Mekele, to recognize that no sustainable victory can be eked out of what is essentially a political dispute. I think outside actors, including the United Nations, but others that are trying to stimulate talks, really need to agree for the parties to at least agree a humanitarian ceasefire, followed by very intensive discussions. I think it really is essential for Prime Minister Abiy to soften his position, to agree that a military victory is not possible, and perhaps it also makes sense for the Tigray People's Liberation Front to accept that although they are militarily ascendant, this will need to be settled through negotiations.
Mutiga, Project Director for the Horn of Africa with Crisis Group, thanks for your insights.